Good morning and welcome to Jasiri. It's a new week and with it comes news stories, viral trends and breaking news. And we've got tea right here on Jasiri. I'm Tolulope, Adeleru-Balogun.
And I want to say thanks for joining us on Jasiri this beautiful morning. We're hoping that we'll bring you a lot of motivation this Monday and not madness for the rest of the week. My name is Omotunde Adebowale David and Kathrine. You look fetching. I hate to say it, but you look fetching.
You hate to say it? Yeah. What kind of early morning Monday hating is this?
It doesn't matter. I don't have to feel all irie every day about you.
I know. She's been on a roll, actually, from the makeup room here. She's just been looking for people to bite. And I said, and people just give her space and say, not today, but I will thank you, Lolo. Really,
Yeah.
I will thank you.
I have brownies.
Wow.
Does it change anything?
I love it.
Behave better.
You know, I have to say that the ladies on Jasiri are always looking sharp, and sometimes we get into the studio and we're color coordinating as if we planned it. Tolu, what did you say the other day? Great minds think alike, huh?
We're great minds.
Yeah, great minds synchronize.
So I do know we have an extra space and our Gen Z baddie is on leave. We need to address it, but we will be praying on her behalf.
Yeah.
And we make sure that when she comes back, she gets that really, really big welcome when she's back. So blessings. We're missing you already, but don't let it go to your head. All right, let's leave it at that.
Yes.
All right,
yes.
so one of these days, we're definitely going to have a fashion talk as well. And I'm looking forward to the award season that's coming up soon, which is, of course, AMVCA. We must definitely do a fashion police segment.
I'll be looking forward to that. Oh my God.
Do you know that's why I avoid going to events?
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be the one.
But I don't mind. Even if you're on the wrong side of the fashion police, at least you're on the side of something.
Really?
Yeah. Anyway, that would be quite interesting. While we're still talking about fashion, you know, this weekend was, God went for a lot of singles across Nigeria. The latest Nollywood couple, that is Remi and his beautiful wife, Boluwatiwi, you know, it was their wedding weekend. And believe me, everybody came out. I mean, social media is buzzing. It's still buzzing as I'm talking to you. Honestly, Nigerians, when we show out at weddings, we show off. Oh, the colors were amazing. The fashion was on point. The joy was palpable.
Everybody just keyed into it. Personally, I feel like, you know, if you're a celebrity or a popular person, the pressure to always look perfect and slay, like, it's so high. You attend weddings and it's like a best dressed competition.
It's ridiculous, actually.
Yes. Someone there was a video making the rounds, a woman wore
a wedding dress.
A wedding dress.
to attend the wedding.
I
But you
saw
see,
it.
if you leave me, you guys know me. Listen, I just want to be able to wear a jalabia and be going my merry way.
I will be coming with you.
But that's not to take away from the event, too. Seriously.
No.
The
So
bride,
it was-
the groom, the guests.
Olive had to post a
Amazing.
video about singles. This is not the weekend. Don't kill yourself. We're very, very happy for Kunle Remi. I just saw a lot of hot takes about his wife, hot takes about a post, Toyosi
and Daniel.
Yeah, Toyosi Philip.
Yes.
She just made like a comment that was not harmful.
Everybody's
Everybody's
blood was hot.
What she was just saying was that there's a lot of pressure on women that marry men
that are in the public limelight.
space.
Yes,
that is a bit challenging.
So where is the lie?
Honestly,
But then again,
everybody took it like she was wishing the couple bad. She was just.
There's been several videos like that and submissions and perspectives. There was a young woman who came out to say, okay, listen, ladies, if you're looking to get married,
drop the baddies.
Haven't you seen that men don't follow Instagram baddies? You know, you have to get more structure. You have to be more calm and stable.
Because this was also the weekend that gospel singer Moses Bliss. He also then went ahead to propose to it. So it's just been
with Valentine's around the corner.
And you're mentioning Valentine's. We have something special coming up for you guys for Valentine's.
Yes,
we'll be revealing it in the coming days. So you definitely want to stay locked right here on Jasiri so that you know what we have planned. Now, we are, of course, prepared to get into more conversations, but it's also important that we touch base on some very pressing issues. Now, over the weekend, the siblings of Nabia El Kadria, who were abducted alongside their father. Imagine abducting a man and his daughters, his 5 daughters. in the Bwari area of Abuja 3 weeks ago have regained their freedom. That was top news this weekend on social media, even yesterday. They were rescued in a joint effort by the FCT Anti-Kidnapping Squad and the Nigerian Army. It's also worth celebrating, but unfortunately, God only knows the kind of trauma that these girls have gone through and will likely carry for the rest of their lives. Now, Nabiha was killed. The family was sent to go and find her body. So while we're celebrating with people and celebrating new beginnings, we also have to remember that there's a lot of insecurity that's claiming many lives in Nigeria. Ladies.
Does it even seem like we're getting a response to insecurity in the country? Because this has not been a new thing.
No.
We have been, if you go as far as, let's not even go too far, let's go back to like 2010. There's always been cases of insecurity. The Chibok girls, I mean, that was huge. And when the President, Goodluck Jonathan was in power. So are we making progress in terms of insecurity? We're just looking at this as one of the things that will pass with time.
Honestly,
we think it's a season and then, we'll be okay.
It's a season that we think it is. I think now we just think you just have to live with it. So we hear more government, state and federal asking people to adjust their lives to reduce the chances of them being kidnapped or something,
but
rather than addressing.
What are we really celebrating about security? The ransom was paid. That was part of why these girls got their freedom. So it's not like, they had some sting operation. They still danced to the tune of this kidnappers. And there's this thing that we shouldn't even pay kidnappers because it's going to start a trend. And honestly, I still saw a video of a guy this morning. Just this morning in Kogi State that was, still in the bush. He hasn't even left, saying that he was kidnapped with with
about 5 of his brothers.
So it is a trend. The truth is, it is a trend. Now, with the release of Nabiha's family and all, these kidnappers will go on thinking that, okay, we can now be bolder and request for several more hundreds of millions of naira. And then what happens if the families involved aren't able to pay for it?
But what we've also seen is that even families that are able to come up with the money, people are still killed. They're just killed because let's not forget when Nabiha's body was found, her body was found with two other people. There was another young lady from, I believe the Ario family also, a family in Abuja. They also unfortunately were victims of kidnapping. Her body was also found as well. So even in situations where people are doing everything they can, family and friends are rallying together, we're doing GoFundMes and money is coming together, they're still killing them.
But I would even expect that we'll get some decisive statements from, security agencies that, these are the things that we're doing. But what we see in Nigeria is that we talk about it on social media. You can imagine when we're talking strategy on how we're going to get. I remember all those times of Chibok girls, they're telling us what their strategy is, how they want to go. I'm wondering now, who is in charge of security? Is there nothing like stealth? Is there nothing like intelligence?
That's
where
the word.
Things are done under, wraps until everything comes together. And the bad thing is that some people would even tell you that they can't communicate with some of these people. I remember
it's phone calls. It's not like they're sending messages via birds. It's phone calls. And all of us remember the stress we went through to do BVN and NIN. So how are people getting SIM cards, put in phones and calling and there's no trace?
All our phones have locations. They have locations. You can actually pinpoint where a call is coming from. If you really, this is of national security.
I think we're not putting, you mentioned national security now, I don't think we're putting enough premium on national security in the
Nigerian life.
No, I don't think so. It's something that we just assume, we just take it as it comes. It's easy for us to adapt. So we say, adapting is one of our strengths, but it's killing us in the end.
It's killing us.
But anyway, before you go, I think it's just important to add some details that we know so far. So 16 suspects were arrested in a recent in connection with recent kidnap operations in Abuja. They were paraded. There were 1 or 2 statements from the police this weekend. And one of the ones that particularly stood out to me is that one of the kidnappers and his accomplices were actually arrested in November of last year. They were charged with similar offenses, but apparently granted bail. And while he's out on bail, he has been found to be guilty, or he has been found to be involved again in kidnapping operations. And I think that's something that we definitely need to look at. Should kidnapping be a bailable offense? What are the conditions around it? And those are some of the conversations that we hope will lead to tighter conditions and stricter regulations on this so that we do not have repeats. Unfortunately, this morning, a young man is saying him and his brothers were attacked. He's the only one out, and 5 of his brothers are now with kidnappers.
Even while we may be looking at the FCT, Lagos too seems to be, seeing an increase in some of these crimes. So we really, really need to look into this very, very carefully as a country. It's becoming unbearable.
So security is, of course, going to be a major and I think definitely continuous conversation over the course of the next several months. Now, if it isn't contained, it will negatively impact President Tinubu's administration, impact the lives of Nigerians, and even the economy that many people are trying to build. But before we go any further, we need to take a quick break. And when we return, the executive director of the Media Rights Agenda joins us to discuss press freedom in Nigeria following the recent court ruling against the Nigeria Broadcasting Commission, NBC. Stay with us.
Welcome back to Jasiri, the place for bold conversations. And this morning, the focus is on a topic that is very dear to us. As a news station and as journalists and broadcasters, our most important mandate is to inform, educate, entertain the public. Now, there is a long history of governments and non-democratic states placing a chokehold on the media to control the public's right access to information.
Well, we may have come a long way from the days of military rule where journalists were easy targets. But even under civilian administration, I question how safe the media profession really is. Now, with regulatory bodies backed by government, which I believe serve the interest of government more, I still question how much levity we have to perform our duties of informing, educating, and entertaining the polity.
And while sometimes when government policies and regulatory bodies use their veto power to infringe on our rights or provide strict rules and sanctions that are authoritarian in nature, that's where advocacy steps in, as in the case of the Media Rights Agenda and the NBC. In 2022, the MRA filed a lawsuit challenging the NBC over the legality of the fines they impose on broadcast stations for alleged breach of the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. Last week, Federal High Court in Abuja issued an order of perpetual injunction. Let me emphasize that again. Perpetual injunction on the NBC and ruled that they do not have the authority to directly impose fines on broadcast stations, citing that it is a judicial function that falls outside of the commission's scope. It's certainly a win for now, but it does raise further questions. So joining us to address the pursuits of press freedom in Nigeria is the executive director of the Media Rights Agenda, Edetaen Ojo. Mr. Ojo, welcome to, I wanted to say News Central. Welcome to Jasiri. Thank you so much. Both of them work. Welcome to News Central. Welcome to Jasiri. It all works. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I think we'll just want to start with what prompted your organization to take the NBC to court, and really what was the basis of the argument? What did you find faulty in the actions of the NBC?
Well, to start with, the National Broadcasting Commission Act was a law passed during the period of military rule. So it had those features of military governance, which is always an attempt to control and suppress. But in 1999, it became, instead of a decree, an act of parliament without going through any real change, apart from the name change. And over the years, we found that the NBC increasingly became authoritarian in the way it was regulated the sector. And that was quite worrisome. But in the last few years, it started to impose fines on broadcast stations, ranging from 500,000 naira to 5 million naira in a number of cases. So we were quite worried about this for a number of reasons. One was the fact that very often the procedure adopted by the NBC in imposing these fines did not give the stations any opportunity to explain their side, to defend themselves, to tell their side of the story. Also, it appeared to us that it became a revenue generation strategy for the NBC because if you look at their budget proposals at the beginning of the year, they indicate some targets of revenues that they're going to generate in the course of the year. So even before any broadcast station has done anything, they've estimated that they're going to collect some millions of naira from fines.
So, you raise an interesting point on that, and I think it's a cloudy area for many agency, MDAs now. This idea that everybody is a revenue generating agency.
Yeah.
That is not what the NBC was set up for. Lolo, Kathrine, and myself, we've worked at radio stations that have been at the end of NBC fines. So this is a conversation that's very near and dear to our hearts. So is there any other reason, anything else you want to add in terms of why you took them to court?
But also, when you look at the role of the media, especially in the light of Section 22 of the Constitution, it's really to hold the government accountable to the people. Now, where you have a regulatory body which sees itself as part of the government machinery, and anytime media criticize or report negatively about the government, it wants to clamp down on the media. It's very problematic for broadcast stations to do their work under those circumstances because there's always this threat that fines will be imposed. And we're not talking of small amounts of money. 5 million naira for, for some infraction. It's a serious problem. So we felt that, that was an obstacle to the ability of the media to perform its constitutional function.
All right. Thank you very much for explaining your reasons to us. Another thing that came out of the pronouncement from the court is that operating word, judicial function. That means that the judge has ruled that fines is a judicial function, that it falls within the purview of the court as an administrative body. Like NBC, you cannot impose fine. So now, who should broadcasters be afraid of? Is it that now, if there's an issue, the Judicial Commission, NBC, I mean, will take the station to court, then the court would impose the fine.
After going through a process to find guilty or innocent.
Adjudicating on the matter. Is that what it's going to be like now?
Well, so the rationale behind the decision of the court is that the imposition of fines, it's normally a sanction for criminal offenses. An administrative body has no authority to try anybody for a criminal offense, much less impose sanctions. So that ought to be a judicial function. But the problem we have with the entire regulatory framework is that the Nigerian Broadcasting Code, which creates the offenses, it's a document that has been created by the National Broadcasting Commission itself. So it's not an act of parliament. We don't have a law which makes all of these things offenses. So we then have a system where the NBC is the lawmaker, it's the complainant, it's the investigator, it's the judge, it imposes the penalties, collects the money, spends the money.
Wow.
I mean, it's anybody who has a sense of justice and thinks about that can see, it's a huge problem. So beyond restraining the NBC from imposing fines, the court has gone to declare those provisions of the Nigeria Broadcasting Code null and void. In effect, they no longer exist. The NBC can no longer say to any broadcast stations, you have violated this provision, therefore this is your fine, because in law it no longer exists.
So who regulates now? I mean, we're happy. I mean, like, listen, it's such a reprieve. It's a breath of fresh air because, in media spaces, it's been said, we all know it, the fear of the NBC is the beginning of wisdom.
Yes.
While we appreciate this, and it's a progressive movement, does it then mean that we are uncensorable media stations, media houses, and media practitioners who now get to decide what the crime, or I wouldn't say crime,
the offense,
strong word, the offense is, and
or if there is even offense that has been committed.
Yes, and how do you mete out penalties if otherwise we're home free?
Well, so the first thing is to say that not all of the offenses created in the Nigeria Broadcasting Code have been nullified. There are offenses for which the sanction is a reprimand. So those that don't appear to be criminal sanctions remain in existence. However, we think that the situation brings us to, it gives us an opportunity to look at this as a democratic society. As I said in the beginning, the MBC Act was, promulgated by the military
era.
So it really did not go through a democratic process of lawmaking. Now, we can come together as stakeholders in the media community and say, what is the best way to regulate the broadcast sector? What are the issues that we really want to regulate? Because imposing criminal sanctions for ethical breaches, it's extremely problematic, which is what the code appears to do. And even in cases where you have fines, they ought to be, minimal amounts of money, not those sort of huge sums of money that the MBC
But you
was.
said that they are stipulated as revenue-generating agencies.
Well,
they
how
have a
would they
target.
now
Are they
make their
supposed to
returns to government?
Exactly.
Well, they have.
Are they even supposed to
they-
be that in the first place?
Well, they have other ways that they also generate revenue from broadcast stations. One, of course, is the license
Licensing
fees,
fee every year.
which are extremely high, ranging from 10, 15 to 20 million naira. That's quite a significant amount of money. But in addition to that, every broadcast station is supposed to pay 2.5% of its annual turnover to the MBC.
A development levy?
Well, that
I want to understand.
Exactly. I think it's like tight.
This is the only way to explain it.
Full understand.
And the problem with that is that it doesn't even take into account the fact that a lot of stations are losing money, are not making
at the
profit.
moment,
Yes.
So it's a charge on your turnover, not on your profit.
On your profit.
Which is usually how government generates revenue from the private sector that is making money. There's usually a charge on your profit. But this is a charge on your turnover. So
what
even
comes
when
in.
you are making losses,
Yes.
you have this additional burden of whatever you spent as your operating cost, a percentage of that still has to be paid to the MBC.
Okay,
so the
sir.
economic environment was quite challenging.
So please, hold on. Okay. Because he touched on something I think we need to get further into that. And we know the Nigerian media has come a very long way. During the time of the military, it's the media that kept that pressure on them. And we have our faults. We don't deny that. And I think it's very important that we're very introspective as the media to be able to acknowledge that we do have faults. But you talked about how to regulate, how to sort of clean up the space. And I remember in 2021, there was a bill before the House of Representatives, the National Press Council Amendment Bill 2019, that proposed that anyone who wanted to be a journalist in Nigeria should have a first degree, higher national diploma certificate or its equivalent in journalism, media arts, or communication. And if they had a first degree in any other course, they had 5 years to get a journalism or commercial, media arts or whatever related. And in some instances, people have described the Nigerian media space as all-comers. You can come in. Whatever you studied, however you studied, you can come in. So if we're looking at fixing and addressing these issues, we also need to talk about what the issues are. So what are the issues? Your top 3 or 4 issues that you think are the pressing issues facing media houses, which then, of course, flows down into being an impediment to press freedom in the country.
Well, of course, there are the economic issues, which is part of what we've been talking about. The economic environment is very challenging. A lot of media houses are not able to pay decent salaries. Some are not even able to pay for months.
And that becomes brown envelope.
It creates incentive for professionals to look for other ways of augmenting their income or even getting any income at all. That needs to be addressed. And part of the solution which we had proposed, if you look at the Constitution, it provides that those who own TV and radio sets should pay a certain amount as a charge that the government levies. However, under the Constitution, that money is collected by local governments and spent by local governments. It doesn't go to the media sector. In many other countries, if you take the UK, for example, that charge on radio and television sets goes to supporting the broadcast sector. So that would be revenue that could come into the broadcast sector and strengthen it. In some countries, they have created funds. So in South Africa, for instance, you have a media diversity fund through which media that are providing certain public interest content are able to draw from to continue to do their jobs. We don't have anything to support the media sector except those that are government-owned, and even those are going through a lot of challenges.
So many challenges.
So there is that as a major challenge that I think we ought to address. The other problem, you referenced the issue of professionalism in the media, which is, you described it as an all-comers affair.
I said they said.
Yeah.
I said they said, though.
I know where your head is tilted, so that's why I should add this question to it. Because now that you talked about that particular thing, social media, these has in many ways, democratized the media space, and it has empowered independent journalism. Now we have become citizen journalists. Everybody is, giving out the news as they see it. Not just here in Nigeria, it's all across the world. Critics of the phenomenon claim that the citizen journalism is unregulated, amateur, and haphazard in quality and coverage. We've seen that in play in Nigeria in some stories. And there is also the fact that many people now get their news from blogs, and everybody in the media space. We're competing with social media to be first and accurate. But in many regards, we've lost, the people's respect. How does the Nigerian media gain back its credibility and integrity? Because that is so critical to our work. Investigative journalism is losing its,
journalism.
Journalism generally. Everybody can just tell a side of the story, and it's already widespread. And, but so these are new realities. So how do we handle that?
Well, first of all, I would separate social media from mainstream media. Oh, yes, we can. Social media is not journalism. No matter, it's a public space.
Can you repeat that?
Social media is not journalism. It's a public space where people come to express themselves. Obviously, that is a right that is protected both under our Constitution and under international law in terms of the right to freedom of expression. So that's fine. But when people are looking for information that they can rely on or that they can trust, they look to mainstream media. Some call it legacy media, some call it traditional media. Because the information that comes through legacy media goes through a process. It is information that is verified, checked, and goes through layers of processing to ensure its reliability and accuracy, which we don't have with social media platforms. So it's very different. And then the profession, for you to say you are a member of the journalism profession, there are codes that you abide by that apply to you. Now, when professional journalists breach those codes, the industry should have a mechanism for dealing with them. Now, across the world, there are different models of regulation. There are some that are self-regulatory, so it's the industry that comes together and sets up the regulatory framework to say, these are the professional standards, you are in breach of the professional standards, and these are the sanctions. Recently, media owners, editors, and journalists represented by the Nigerian Union of Journalists set up the National Media Complaints Commission in Nigeria. It was inaugurated in April last year, and I'm a member of that commission. So that is one model. But that model is a co-regulatory model. So it's not the industry alone. It brings in other professions. So there's a representative from the Nigerian Bar Association. There's a representative from the academia. There are civil society representatives. Indeed, a member of that commission is the chair of the House of Representatives Committee on Information. Good. So that is another model. But there's also what is called statutory model, where government is involved in the regulatory process. But government should not dominate the process, because government is a stakeholder. One can argue that. But where government dominates the process, and you have a situation where you want media to hold government accountable, it's frequently impossible. No government likes to be criticized. So once you criticize them, they begin to look for ways of suppressing you. The other issue you raised, which is the qualification for being a journalist. Now, journalism takes its source from the right to freedom of expression. And there's been a lot of controversy about introducing minimum qualifications, because what that means is that you're saying that only people who have those qualifications can exercise their right to freedom of expression.
But I don't actually agree, because do you allow a doctor who has not gone through certain trainings to operate? Do you allow a pilot that has not gone through certain things to be a pilot?
These are not professions that are protected.
But freedom of expression is not solely tied to being a journalist. What we're asking is if qualifications to call yourself a journalist, to be able to hold up and beat your chest, should not be tightened.
Okay, so let's look at what we're doing now. Are we doing journalism here?
We're doing an arm of it.
What's the arm?
Broadcasting, information, entertainment, and of course education.
The profession, the media profession, is a melting pot of different ideas.
So many things.
There are competencies and expertise that professional journalists would not be able to bring into the media space. So there are people who are reporting science, aviation, medicine, law, and all of that. You have to bring those who are knowledgeable in these different fields to enlighten members of the public.
So then doesn't the second part of the amendment that was being proposed then make sense? If you have a first degree in any other course, you have 5 years to then learn the code of ethics and go through. I'm playing devil's advocate. And then go through so that even though you're coming with these different competencies and expertise, you are given the structure and you understand the ethics of being a medical journalist, a legal journalist, a judicial correspondent, a security correspondent, as it may be.
It may appear reasonable, but the problem with the framework that you were citing is that even where you have met all of those requirements, there is a discretion on the part of the Nigerian Press Council
to reject you,
to license you or not to license you.
But at least
the conversations are very interesting and
amazing.
I wish we had more time.
Please, I have to sneak in one question. And Buki, please don't be mad. That's our producer's name. Because the question is this. Now, we don't know. NBC has not said whether they will appeal or not. I don't know if you're getting any feelers on that.
I'm very sure an appeal is in the horizon.
And then the second part of it goes back to, I think, your second answer in terms of offenses. If certain things are being nullified within the code, where does the NBC go from there? Even though I know you're not speaking from the NBC, if we're thinking about this in a media and press freedom, how it should be in a perfect world, where should the NBC be going from here?
Well, let me just say that this is not the first decision on this issue.
Yes.
There was a decision issued by another federal high court in May last year, on the 10th of May, where it came to the same decision and issued a perpetual injunction restraining the NBC. Last week's decision went further to nullify these provisions in the code, in effect to say that these provisions no longer exist. And the ECOWAS court has also given a similar decision. We're quite happy for the NBC to appeal so that we'll have an appellate court decision on this.
And maybe go to the Supreme Court.
Maybe it will go to the Supreme Court.
I want it to go to the Supreme Court because that would just put a nail on it.
It will, I think, settle the matter for us. But the basic problem is that we're operating a law made by the military and pretending that it is an act of parliament.
In a democracy.
In a democracy. So it did not go through any democratic lawmaking process. The other international standard, and it's both international and regional, is that any regulatory body for the media must be independent of government.
And I think
we have the NBC that is not independent. In fact, its enabling law, Section 6, says that the Minister of Information can give the NBC directives, and the NBC is obliged to comply with those directives. And what came out under the last administration was that the Minister of Information was instructing the NBC to sanction broadcast stations that either aired critical stories or portray the government in bad light. That cannot be an acceptable regulatory model.
All right. You can see as broadcasters and journalists, we're very, very interested in this conversation, and it's one that we know will continue. If there's movement to appeal, if it continues into the appellate situation, or even all the way to Nigeria Supreme Court, it's a conversation will continue. And we will be introspective enough to realize our faults and work to make the media profession a better one. Mr. Edetaen Ojo, Executive Director of the Media Rights Agenda, thank you so much for being on Jasiri. We hope you enjoyed yourself.
Oh, thoroughly. I wish we had more time to also
we'll definitely bring you back.
Issues, but like you said, it's a conversation that will continue until we find a proper approach to regulating the media sector.
And we didn't even talk about self-censorship. Before I go down another stream, let's take a quick break. We have much more coming up on Jasiri, and that means, of course, we have hot topics. Stay with us.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Jasiri on News Central TV, and remember, you can get in on the action. Share your thoughts and feedback across all our social media platforms at News Central TV using the hashtag Jasiri. Like Tolu said, it's time for hot topics. This one, I must say, makes my blood boil. Now,
why are you not speaking French?
No,
your blood is boiling?
Attends, j'arrive. J'arrive. C'est doucement. On commence doucement. Non, mais ça m'énerve. To think of the hardships Nigerians are facing, inflation, especially rising cost of food. Leave transportation. No, transportation is always there. But you see, the continuous rising cost of food, the utilities, everything you pay for, and then we see this headline. Where do you get off increasing your own budget? As in, you just sit down in the parlor of your home, the comfort of your
parliament,
office.
in the comfort of your national assembly.
Exactly. And you know, I'm talking about the headline: Serap, 20 others who sue Akpabio and Abbas, including others for increasing their own budget by 147 billion naira. Vous êtes malade tous.
You said? I don't think you want to translate. NBC is still watching. No, but this story.
It's just abominable, the things that people get to do. Sometimes I don't know whether our lawmakers forget that the people are the ones that put them there. They're not there because of their own agenda. They are there for the agenda of the people. But how can you the country is hard in itself. We're trying to see how we can bring down the cost of governance.
No.
And it's recently the president reduced the amount of people going
on all these foreign trips.
On the foreign trips and the convoys. At least I want to applaud him for that. Now you just tell us that you just arbitrarily increase the budget. What do you want to use it for?
It's finished now.
Are they telling us they want to buy new cars or they want to clean the National Assembly?
I'm just doing like this. It's like I'm watching tennis match.
They've done such funny things in the past. They'll tell you they have rats in the parliament that they need to get fumigation for.
Fumigation is billions of naira.
And it's billions of naira. Honestly, sometimes I feel it's insensitive. I'm going back
to where you started, which is, of course, many of them don't recognize that they are put there as public servants.
Exactly.
They're put there as people who are meant to serve the interests of the majority. Even sometimes as a public servant or an office holder, you will be facing a direction and taking your people, kicking and screaming in that direction because it's for the better good. But we rarely see that. And when I remember one of the national lawmakers who was on a television show I think November, talking about why they were not choosing made in Nigeria vehicles, and they were again insisting on taking foreign vehicles and his reasoning for it. And you just think about the fact that this person is sitting on national TV and this is the type of reasoning he's going to give you when he's making laws.
Do you know why? It's easy. They
get away with it. They will be
accountable. Nobody is holding anybody.
Because, like I said earlier in the segment on Jasiri, I said it, that we have an incredibly high sense of adaptability. That is because we have a way of we just adjust ourselves,
keep moving on
to the and just move on and then forget about it and then carry ourselves to church and die there.
Hey, but what do you want Nigerians to do? Honestly, I want to applaud us for our bendability, our adaptability. Sometimes Nigerians that are in common spaces, if we leave our reality, there is nobody that will be able to survive in this country. Our ability to just morph and change is what is keeping us.
Condition make crayfish bend.
Yes.
Have we not bent enough? Are Nigerians not? So when you look at, if you think of the Arab Spring, if you think of some other protests in other countries, other countries have gone through so much more than Nigerians, and even one small thing is a spark. Nigeria will go to church.
Nigerians can talk, but nobody is willing to belt the cat.
No, we go to church.
Is it your own child that you say should lead the protest of something? Nigerians will say lie. So let's keep praying, please. Leave us in our prayer room. At the end of the day,
I think that this is, because legality, these are people who know the Constitution and the law, this is more of a moral issue. At a time when Nigerians are facing insecurity, at a time when food costs are more than 75% of the take-home, you have more Nigerians in poverty than we've ever had. You are saying that you want to increase your budget, and it's a value conversation. What value has the National Assembly delivered for many Nigerians over the years? What value has this assembly? Have you even proven yourself before you're asking for more money?
Honestly, it's very unbecoming.
Yeah, I want to move on.
The next story is equally annoying. Honestly, this next story highlights something that happens like once in a blue moon. And that's Nigerians and South Africans agreeing. You know, we hardly see eye to eye on things. Ghana and Nigeria are still fighting jollof rice. So, not to talk of it. So how did we come to unite against a common foe?
Good question.
This weekend.
I love it.
American rapper that is not like so known.
I don't know why
he's known for being Nicki Minaj's ex-boyfriend.
Made a very interesting tweet where he was so concerned about how we Africans enjoy his music and rolls eyes. That tweet, you can all see it on screen. He said, do a lot of people play my music in South Africa?
I love the responses.
Wait. You see, do a lot of people play my music in South Africa? I'm looking
Can we get the screen? Can we get the tweet back?
I'm sure.
If so.
Remember having a big show a few years back. How do you all listen to my music in South Africa? What platform? Or in Nigeria? Please, I have to tell him. I ask how they listen to the music in South Africa because I want to handle my business and some of my contracts.
Where are the punctuations?
Let
me read it for you. None of my contacts, okay, this is his response after he has been dragged. I was asking how they listen to my music. I was asking how they listen to my music in South Africa because none of my contacts apparently know how they do it. No. They don't have rights to distribute my music in Africa. Basically looking for the money trail. I don't know what platform uses South Africa. Wait.
No, Tolu,
no
let
punctuation.
me tell you the platform.
No punctuation.
We listen to your music through the hyenas.
Please, can I get the tweets, the responses on screen?
Oh my God.
My goodness.
If McMill knew that we had this slogan for 2024 was not
for anybody. What is even
he will not allow, in quote, the devil user.
So here are some of the responses. We don't have any music streaming services in Nigeria. We have this guy. He's the only one that has access to Spotify. He's a town crier. He comes every Friday to perform your songs for us. This is how we listen to your music. I hope this helps.
God.
Next, I need to laugh this out.
We need to read some more.
I need to laugh this out. Well,
of course.
I like this lady. I follow her.
I love this one.
We get our pet lions to run around from crocodiles and it generates electricity. From there, we use polystyrene cups and plug it into our iPhones and hope we have something. Then we also have, well, it depends on the season. In summer, we hear it through the trunk of an elephant. In the spring, the giraffes can stand.
The music you did with Davido.
Then another one.
Where do you think the streams came from?
Honestly, do you know that there's a trend that a lot of people overseas actually still think Africa we're still living in trees?
Can I tell you my personal experience?
No.
So when I was very young, and I remember in middle school, so we'd been there for a while. My father has traditional marks. Obumasho man. I'm a very proud Obumasho girl. So he has these traditional marks. And my friends would look. Finally, one came to me one day. Did my father fight a lion? I said, and so if you want to be stupid, I can be stupid with you. I said, yes, my father fought a lion.
And won.
And see which one of them is standing.
Oh, yes.
So for like a week, they gave me a very wide berth, you know?
In case.
Then I hear things like, oh, do you have phone? Do you live in huts?
There's even a trend that is going on. of that, you know, like all these things. Of course, I'm Africans. We still we go to the farm every morning to take our food from the ground, and we eat. You know, they just think that we're living in mud.
So do we give him some grace, because his response? Catherine. His response this morning was that he was asking about music.
But it's okay. Go and do your.
If he was intelligent, he would have started from saying that, oh, my music, who has rights to my music in Nigeria?
So I think it's how he put it.
How he put it. He put it from that unintelligent place. That, and I don't blame them. Of course, when Africans are always doing that, people are hungry.
It's okay, not the vet.
Every time they show all our
annoyed.
I know, before we go, I have to say this. You know, I saw this somewhere. They said, when you're in your 50s, the only things you cannot read, you know, are letters and words. But, you know, you can recognize a stupid, idiotic person from far.
No.
Okay, please let me wrap. It's all right, Catherine. I can't.
What's going on? Seriously.
Today, I don't agree for anybody.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. You can meet us on social media using the hashtag Jasiri. Lolo is on a tear. And before she tears into us, we want to excuse ourselves. But we're also keeping our eyes on what the Super Eagles are doing in Côte d'Ivoire. And we're also keeping our eyes on the Falconets. Woo!
Yes, my girl.
Nigeria's Falconets also made the country proud. So while we have our eyes on AFCON 2023, many of you don't know it's actually 2023, please let's also be proud of everyone who's flying the Nigerian flag high. Ladies, we are rooting for you.
Yes,
thank you so much for watching. Thank you to our guest, Edetaen Ojo, for being part of the conversation on Jasiri. We'll be back same time tomorrow at 10 a.m. West African time.
Would you play football as a woman?
I play volleyball.
No, I know. I don't understand why.
I play volleyball. I would do synchronized swimming.
I played volleyball for 12 years.
I don't understand why.
I want to join the national team for synchronized swimming.
It's bye-bye. Have a nice day. We're done now. You said what?